All right, so here I am again on one of my favorite daily things to do, and that is walk my dog out here in this beautiful, green, spacious area of the Piedmont Triad, North Carolina, that we're in right now. As always, I carry my plastic bag to pick up trash like this along the way. Usually it's much worse than it has been. We're right in the path of a high school nearby, and kids walk through the neighborhood during school days, and the amount of trash picks up. I'm not necessarily blaming them, but I don't. Circumstantial evidence would suggest that among them would be the culprits, especially considering most of the garbage I pick up are wrappers for candy and bags, chips, empty chip bags. So I would assume that most of the young people walking through the neighborhood just toss and walk. But anyway, that's a problem. Constant, ongoing problem. You know, I got into this genealogy thing a long time ago. I was inspired, like many, by Alex Haley's Roots, by the television show, by the whole story of his quest for his ancestors and where it led him to. And since I happen to live in Washington, D.C., this was during the 80s. During the summer months when I'd come home from college at Morehouse, and then when I was on summer break, after I transferred to Howard, and I was on summer break from Howard, I would, when I wasn't working jobs, I would go down to the archives. This is long before the internet, long before we had access to applications that make that task so much easier now. And I'm hesitating because there's this fallen wire here, and I don't quite know what that is. So now, where it used to take me back then, it would take me sometimes days, if not weeks, of going through roll after roll of the microfiche and the micro documents on roll. All of the census, the federal census data is all on film rolls that you have to go through this machine, and you have to scan them page by page, or if you at least use the indexes, you know where your ancestors may be based on the index, and you can drill down to the specific page of the roll without having to go through page after page. But nevertheless, even after you've gone and found who you were looking for, it kind of benefits you from by going through page after page on the census in that specific county for that specific year. Because oftentimes that's how you'll find ancestors other ancestors that you may have only known a little bit about, or at least knew existed, but may reside in a household that you were not expecting. And I had that occur frequently. So, I started, and how did I start? I started with the information provided by my grandparents. One year, my mother's father, who was in his 90s, Louis Jr. Williams, stayed with us at our home in Washington, D.C., and the next year, my father's mother, Leella Williams Cheek, stayed with us also. Both were getting work done at Howard University Hospital, and so they stayed with us while they were being evaluated. While they did that, my parents set them down. We had an old Bible that had a family tree inside. Well, our family tree was empty. I think it may have had just two names. That was my mom's name and my dad's name. And so, based on their recollections, they filled in the ancestry going back as many generations as they could take us back. And so I had the name of I had my great-grandparents' names on both sides. Let's see, so I have 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, and I had all their names. And then we were able to take it back another generation. And we had most of their siblings as well. And we were able to take it back another generation and get the names of my great-great-grandparents. At least my great-grandparents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and my great-grandparents in some instances. We didn't have everyone's name for great-grandparents. But at least that was a jumping off point. And interestingly enough, though, because if you're doing genealogical research and you are the descendant of enslaved people of African descent, or enslaved people, period, you are going to hit what is called the brick wall, or I call it the black hole. You're going to hit a hole in after 1870 where you cannot find your ancestors listed by name anymore in the census records, because these bastards never recorded if they were slave owners, they never recorded the names of their slaves and recorded in census records. We put it that way. They may find out. You may find them in wills or letters or some kind of references, usually bills of sale, things like that. You may find the names of your ancestors in bills of sale, but you will not find them recorded in the federal census by name. They had slave rolls, and in the slave rolls, all they did was mark whether they were a male or female. Sometimes they may have remarked about the color of the ancestor, male or female, color, and gender. I said that, and age, approximate age. So it was age, color sometimes, and whether or not they were male or female, gender. And that's all that exists in the slave rolls. So if you do not know specifically which white families owned your enslaved ancestors, it's extremely difficult to locate them, or even you don't even know where to begin after going from 1860 and beyond then. However, with my grandfather especially, my grandfather knew who owned my great-grandfather. His father was Friday Williams, and my grandfather knew who owned Friday Williams because the owner was his father. The owner was his father's father. In other words, the owner was my grandfather's grandfather. And that man's name was Blaney Williams. And so in my Bible, I have recorded as the father of Friday Williams, a white man named, and this is my grandfather's word, Master Blaney Williams. So that helped a lot, because Williams, although is a common name, Blaney is not. And the rarer the name is, the greater likelihood is you'll be able to trace the person in the record, in the written record, as was the case with me with Blaney Williams. And so I was able to locate in the census records and follow. I found Friday up to 1870. I found him with my great grandmother, my grandfather's mother, Eliza, and they are all in the census records. Lewis wasn't born until 1878, so I find him in 1880. They're residing in the household. It was a big household. It was a farming household, and so I find all of them in the census records. And then from that point on, I traced Blaney Williams and the Williams family, and I traced them all the way back to the 1600s when they arrived in Jamestown from England, and then I was able to trace them even beyond in England. So regardless of the situation, the circumstances, as unfortunate as it may be, or as fortunate, no, it's not fortunate, but as unfortunate as it is, those are my ancestors. And so that was the story, and that's all I had. It was my grandfather's recollections until this DNA thing. And my sister and I started testing our ancestry first through, she tested first through Ancestry.com. I, on the other hand, I tested my patrilineal ancestry through African ancestry, and was able to trace my mother's matrilineal ancestry through African ancestry. And then I was able to trace my father was still alive then, I was able to trace his matrilineal ancestry through African ancestry, and was able to trace my mother's patrilineal ancestry through her through her brother, my uncle, who was alive at the time, Ralph Williams, and was able to determine the specific Y-DNA and mitochondrial DNA lineage of those 4 lines. With the ancestry results, my sister and I, which I eventually did as well as in addition to my sister, we were able to confirm our link to indeed the Blaney Williams line. Blaney Williams' ancestors are indeed my cousin matches, as well as many other of the white families that owned my black ancestors. So oftentimes when you are hearing people refer to black people in the South as uncle and aunt, Uncle Remus, Uncle Thomas, Aunt Bess, those motherfuckers weren't lying. They were their real aunts and uncles. That's why they called them Uncle Remus, Uncle Thomas, Aunt Bess, because them motherfuckers knew. They knew. And they still kept them enslaved. I'm out.